So, welcome to the Embodied Woman podcast. We are so honored and delighted to have Rachel here with us today. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being here. In the midst of the Portland, Oregon crazy snowstorm, which we were just talking about for a second, about like people have not had power, people have had trees falling down on their houses and their cars. What's going on with you over there?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing fine. My neighborhood is relatively low key. I guess the worst thing we've had is our cold water pipe up to our main and only bathroom froze, but we were still able to get warm water, so we're
Okay.
doing okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here in the
Good.
midst of all of that.
Yeah, no problem.
So, Amber and I have been so excited and interested in human design. Amber actually has been
Yes.
interested in it for a long time, and then it's been more of a recent endeavor for me. And I found your book in Powell's bookstore, and it was a signed
Oh,
copy,
awesome. Yeah.
I love the
which
cover. I love the colors and the way it's designed. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it turned out really nice. I definitely wanted it to be bright, and yeah, I'm really glad that it's out there.
bright like
Congratulations.
your aura.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to read your bio really quick. So, Rachel Lieberman is a human design expert, the creator of Pure Generators, which is puregenerators.com. And I actually just went on and bought a reading from it, which is so reasonably priced. And it was like, yes, thank you. And the author, and then when I saw the colors and the way it's organized and the way it's explained in the printout of the reading, I was just like, this is so simple and fun and easy compared to other readouts that I've looked at.
I'm
Just want to
glad
say
you
that.
felt that way.
She is the author of A Modern Guide to Human Design, where she shares accessible, practical human design info. She is particularly interested in how we can liberate ourselves from draining jobs, live in alignment with our true lives, our true selves, and understand our role in the shift into the new paradigm. It's
I love
so
that.
It's so exciting. And I've been sending Amber underlined pieces of your introduction, which the, well, I just want to let you talk for a second, Rachel. Like, tell us, let's start with the beginning of like, where are you from and where did you grow up?
Yeah, I'm actually from Portland. I grew up here. I did live other places for a while, but I ended up coming back here because I just really like it, and that's where my family is. But I guess I ended up coming to human design through just having extreme burnout at a job, um, and hearing what I call a sacral scream, which was like one day I'd been ignoring just the fact that that job was not working for a really long time. And I just had this moment where I was like, I cannot be here anymore. Like it was just like a scream inside my body, and I just had to move on. So that was kind of how I ended up in the human design world. I don't know if you guys have, I sort of skipped ahead from like being born to coming to human design, but yeah, just let me know if you have any
I've
other
never
questions.
heard I've never heard that description, a sacral scream. That can you dive into that a little bit more? Like what is that? What does it feel like? What does it feel like in your body? I mean, I feel like I have an idea because I think I've experienced it myself, but talk about that. Is that a common phrase in human design, or is that something that you've come up with to describe how you felt?
Yeah, it's definitely not an official human design term, I would
Okay.
say, but when I use that term, a lot of people resonate with it because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have had that experience of maybe pushing their energy too far. Like, ideally, we wouldn't have to hear the scream because we've listened when it's like more of just a no feeling or sound. But yeah, people definitely experience the yeses and nos as generators and manifesting generators differently, but it can be like an expansive feeling. It can be a literal like, you hear your say, or just yes. Some people just go straight to like a yes coming out of their mouth before they even know what's happening. And then no can be like just a sinking feeling, a draining feeling. It can also be a literal like, you hear all of that. So I think everybody experiences a little differently. Mine are pretty like feeling based. Usually I kind of get like a surge of energy or like just a sinking feeling. But at that point, I didn't know about human design. But I just had that experience, and I just knew for some reason that I needed to listen to that. But yeah, I really felt like this, it felt like something collapsed inside of me. That's the best way I can describe it. And I was like, oh, like this isn't going to work anymore.
Yes.
The paradigm shift that you talked about in your book, Siri sent it to me. I thought it was so profound and resonant, and it makes so much sense to me because I definitely see the shift. And you ended up in a career that you did not feel like was in alignment with your soul, with your blueprint, with who you are here to be. But most of us, that's how we were raised, in that paradigm of you go to school and you pick a thing and you do the thing but it has nothing to do with checking in and seeing like what you truly are here to do. Do you want to share a little bit about kind of your upbringing or your conditioned beliefs that led you into a career that was not in alignment, was not your self theme?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in like a very traditional family, like very traditional jobs, a lot of like teachers. My dad was like in business, and I would say that I sort of followed closer to like his path. But it wasn't so much that I just got that in my head and I went for it. I think it was something that I went into through sacral responses in a way. And so that's why I was able to stay in it for so long, because I think there was quite a bit of satisfaction in that for me. I definitely wasn't just doing it because I felt that I had to, although I didn't really know about these other options like having your own business. I just that wasn't something that felt realistic for me at that time. Um, but I think it's not always black and white for people, and it definitely wasn't for me. That job and career was really satisfying until I just wasn't using my energy correctly. So I
Mm.
switched from being someone who was like a project manager who had my own things, kind of my own, I had a lot of like my own time and uh like solo work, to managing people. And that was really when I burnt out. That was just very incorrect for my energy for whatever reason. So that was really just like the last 9 months of it. But yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't believe that I could survive materially on my own, until I was kind of forced to. I had had that thought for probably like 4 years before I left that job. Like I was like, I kind of just know I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to do something different, but it just all had to unfold in its own time. I mean, I'm a generator. I think I tend to operate a little slower than most people. So it was just kind of a gradual journey to that. And even taking that promotion that led to the burnout was a yes response. So that's what's so interesting about this is uh listening to your inner authority doesn't necessarily mean that you will only do things that are like perfect and amazing for you and last forever. Like that's not really the point. It's a journey. It's like it's going to take you to where you need to go to experience what you need to experience. And so it makes sense. Like I just don't think I would have left that job or done anything different had it continued to be like somewhat satisfying. I would have held on. I would not have left. So I can see why I responded yes to that, and then that kind of like catapulted me out of that job. So yeah, it's not always straightforward when you go through it.
Yes, like all roads lead to your realization and your learning,
Hmm.
regardless of your design and regardless of your consciousness. I love how you were, a couple of things I love that you were talking about in the beginning of the book was one is going from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. I was interviewing my mom yesterday, and she's been on the spiritual path her whole life and since I was born. And she was talking so much about these concepts of the age of Pisces. And not until I read this morning some of your more of your book was I realizing, oh, that's like a generational transition paradigm shift that's happening. Yeah, I'd just love to
Yeah.
hear more about that shift and what you've been discovering about it.
Yeah, we're in just a really exciting time. That's why I wanted to include that in the book. It's not specifically a human design related thing. Human design talks about it. They talk about the year 2027 and the shift between two different like incarnation crosses. To be honest, that's not something that I have gone super deep into because there's a lot of different ways to talk about it. But basically, it's all kind of the same thing. It's this shift from this Pisces energy into Aquarius that we're all kind of like swimming in. And these eras last for like 2000 years. So to be at the transition of one of these is kind of rare for humanity. You know, we haven't been around for all that long. So that's why things are just kind of crazy right now, moving so quickly. Like, I just don't think that in the last few millennia, people have experienced such big changes between like what their parents experienced, grandparents experienced growing up, and like what the world they're living in now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're basically moving from an age where it's like the big world religions, the like Jesus is really like sums up a lot of that era, but you know, there's kind of versions of that energy in a lot of different world religions. This like forgiveness and spirituality and like not paying so much attention to material things, that kind of can seem a little old to a lot of us now. But if you think about it, that was like a huge revolutionary way of living after living through like the age of Aries, where everything was about war and conquering and empires. So we're just kind of like moving. We've figured that out. We've like internalized that, and it's just no longer really serving us as a collective. We've mastered that, and now it's time to move away from sort of melting into the greater whole and moving a bit more into this time of like individuality. And that's really where the Aquarius energy comes in, because it's about like everyone acknowledging their uniqueness, but then working connected to other people, because Aquarian energy is very like community oriented, but it also really acknowledges like everybody's uniqueness.
I love this whole going from the hierarchy and how much you talk about that human design is not about here's another guru to follow, here's another format to follow. Like, this is all about us stepping into the age and the paradigm shift of listening to our very, very, very individual, unique, even twins, you said, have different charts, our very unique
Mm-hmm.
way of operating and our energy of operating. And I just think that's so liberating. I know, Amber, you've talked so much about being a projector, and I've learned so much from, Amber's kind of introduction to me of what this projector life looks like. And then I realized all these other relationships in my life with projectors and me being a manifesting generator. And it's like, we are so different. And how do we communicate? And how do we operate? And how do we respect each other?
Yeah, and that's really what it's about. When you understand that people aren't exactly like you, because that is just human nature to project that. We all just think that way. It's just kind of how we are. Once we realize that's not true, then we can just give everybody so much more grace and space and understanding. And life is just a lot less frustrating when we like understand that other people are different and they're not always going to be exactly how we are. And I think that's probably the most powerful thing about human design, and one of the things that's really going to help how humans interact with each other and get along. Because right now, yeah, like you mentioned, hierarchies are based on deciding what is like the ideal way to be, and then everybody else sort of trying to perform that. And it just hasn't worked for a lot of people. It works for some people. And I guess the idea was that you would kind of go out and find the hierarchy that worked for you. There was some variance, but there also, yeah, it's just it excluded a lot of ways of being, different people. So yeah, I think it's going to help a lot just to understand that everybody's different.
Speaking of, being a projector and kind of just my learning more about it, like I wrote a book, it's coming out next month, and I'm going through my final edits, and I have this part where I talk about how I feel like I have felt my entire life that I arrived here on Earth, ready to play this game that I was prepared for, and I knew the rules, and I'd studied the book, and then all of a sudden I discover that the game that I'm prepared for is not what the rest of the humans are playing. And I
Mhm.
feel so ill-equipped. And I understand that the population, the percentage of projectors is like 20% versus
Mhm.
the generators or the manifesting generators is a larger percentage, like 70 or 80%. And so,
Yeah.
I have spent a lot of my life feeling frustrated that I'm not doing it the way that the ideal way to do it is, and fighting for my own, like, sovereignty to be to like be validated for. And so I think that's why I have loved human design so much, is because it has given me language to put to feelings that I have felt all my life, like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? So I love that, and I love that we are moving. I very much feel that way, that we are moving into this place where, it used to be like tribe first and then, individuality, and it's like flipping, like
Mhm.
individuality aligning with that sovereign, wholeness, and then our community and our tribe and our connection comes from that place. And that just makes so much more sense to me, right? But
Exactly.
that's why
Yes.
I guess I'm here at this time on earth, because that's what we're moving into. I have a question for you. This is a question that we like to ask all of our guests. Is there a specific experience that you've had in your life where you were never the same after that experience?
Yes, there definitely was. I guess the main one that comes to mind would be what I would consider my spiritual awakening. This was like my way of experiencing this, because I think there's a lot of different ways. But in 2014, I met what I would describe as my twin flame. There's a lot of like crazy stuff out there about that concept. But for me, it was like meeting this person that, for whatever reason, it just forced me to see everything about myself, to understand that like everything was connected in the world, to see myself as a spiritual being really for the first time. And that just like blasted my whole world open. And that was when I began like my healing journey. I began to get into things like astrology or human design or healing. Like I really did not know anything about that. Like I was from kind of like a more like intellectual, or yeah, just like not so alternative world. And that was the kind of education I had. So I didn't know about those things. I didn't really like think they were real. I don't know. I guess I was open to it. But that was, yeah, like really I can mark like pretty much like the month that that happened. And yeah, my life definitely never went back to normal as it had been before that. Yeah.
I'm
Twin
curious
flames. That's
about,
that's go on.
oh, go ahead.
No, the topic of twin flame, I just find it fascinating. There's so much controversy. Like there's so many people that have different opinions and perspectives, but I find it very interesting.
Yeah. And there's crazy documentaries about it right now too
I
in
know. I started to think,
2024. So
yep, yep, yep. But it catalyzed for you a spiritual awakening that has brought you to where you are right now. So,
it did. And it has a happy ending. I'm now married to this person.
oh,
So,
I love
yeah,
that.
it wasn't like some crazy, like just, yeah. I mean, for some people, it is just sort of like a catalyst event. But for me, we were able to like make it work eventually. And so it's always nice to hear like good stories about
Oh, I
that
love
that have
happy
happy
endings.
endings. Yeah.
Yay, there's hope.
Yeah.
So, Rachel, we talk about on this podcast a lot about being your embodied self as a woman, the embodied woman, and what it feels like when you're not embodied, and like what those experiences are, and when we notice them, how to get back into our body. And I feel like that lines up really well with what you talk about in your book with human design. So, I'm curious about how you would, first of all, relate to the words the embodied woman. Like, what is that for you?
Yeah, I think like that is a lot of how I try to look at human design and talk about it, because just like anything, we're humans. It's easy for the mind to get a hold of things, and that definitely happens in human design, even though the entire point of it is to be listening to something within your body that's guiding you. That can just still be hard. So it's common to see people getting really entrenched in theory and really like mixed up in that, when really it is pretty simple. It's about learning to listen to your body, especially as a generator or manifesting generator. Like you have this mechanism within you that's communicating with you pretty much at all times. Like it's like it's either a yes or a no, or it's kind of like waiting to respond. So for us in particular, but for everybody, it's really important to be connected to those signals from your body, because that is ultimately what's guiding you through the world. And so like I've definitely had to learn, like, if you're in a human design, I have a defined head and ajna, which basically just means I have like consistent mental energy all the time. And I think when you have that, it can be easy to get out of your body. And I would say like most of my life, I was not in my body. So I still have to notice like,
This is your chart, right?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, wow, that's why she was able to write this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. It's like that's a kind of a natural design of like someone who's kind of translating something a little more abstract into something that's a little bit more tangible. That's definitely sort of like part of what I do, and just yeah, how my energy works. But it can also, like, you can see that head stuff is split from the body stuff in my chart. So there can be these like two things going on at once, and it can be easy to get like stuck up in the head. So when that happens, it's like I can kind of just notice like, oh yeah, like I can literally feel this energy up in my head just going, and I need to like take a deep breath, get back into the present moment, and like notice what's going on around me, because especially as someone who's here to respond to the world, and that's how I make my decisions and that's how I move forward, because generators are not like, okay, I'm going from point A to point B, like how's the fastest I can get there? Like how do I just, like, that's more of like a manifesting generator or manifester way of moving. We in particular are kind of just like bobbing through like, yeah, the world, waiting for these things to like approach us so that we can respond and then make moves. So if we're not paying attention to what's around us, if we're not in our bodies listening to those signals, it can just be so easy to get lost. So
Mm.
that's definitely uh, how I like to talk about human design, the importance of that. But I would also say, like, I was not able to do that until I did quite a bit of healing work on myself, like just a lot of emotional healing that really facilitated that. So I always think that's really important alongside things like human design.
What are some of your go-to practices when you're noticing that you're not in your body and you're swimming around in your head? What are some of the practices that you like?
Yeah, I mean, these days I would say like I'm pretty simple with it. I just sort of have these things that I do like in the moment. But just like stopping, stretching, breathing. If there's a lot of thoughts going on, just like writing those down. I think for some people, speaking it to somebody else is more natural. There's no like one way to do all this stuff. But for me, yeah, taking that time, like especially at the beginning of the day, middle of the day too, and end of the day, just to make sure that like I'm not getting too much in my head, and like recentering and like, wait, is what I'm doing actually feeling energizing right now, or am I just trying to finish something and I'm starting to like stress out my body? It becomes really subtle, or at least like over time it's become more subtle for me. So just,
It's
it makes sense. I have consistent energy. I have to consistently check in, because it can be very easy for that to be going in directions that are not so energizing and satisfying, for sure.
yeah, you talk about the deconditioning, right?
Hmm.
That's a process. And
Yeah.
so for you, generator, like, right, you have the energy to complete these tasks, but not just because you have the energy to complete them doesn't mean you're always meant to complete them in that moment or ever complete them. Or is that more manifesting generator? I don't know.
No, I would say that's definitely true. Like most of us, I guess, we grew up like, this is what you do every day. These are all the tasks you do. You go to work, you do this. Um, And yeah, most of the time we have energy, and 70% of the world has that energy every day. So that's why there's just a lot of people doing things that they don't really enjoy. I have noticed that the non-sacral types, the reflectors, projectors, and manifestors, tend to notice that about themselves much quicker, that that is not for them. So they're more likely to go down an alternative path of like being an entrepreneur or doing their own thing, or just some kind of more alternative way of working, even if they don't know anything about their human design, because they can just sense like that's not really for me. But yeah, the rest of us, it's just very easy to do all of those shoulds. And it doesn't mean like we can't still show up for like, you have to take out the trash. Like that's okay. Like it's like we have energy for that. That's life. You don't have to be like super passionate about every single task you do, but you just want like the majority of the things that you're doing in your work life to feel good. Yeah.
What
So
would you say for people who don't know anything about human design when they hear you talking about, what their profile is and what their blueprint is?
Mhm.
And what would you say is the biggest like difference in your life experience, your day-to-day experience with this awareness, with aligning with your blueprint, your self theme versus your not self theme? Like what was your day like before, as far as how you feel, what you like, your emotional life, and then how you feel now the majority of the time? Yeah, just to give some
Yeah.
people some ideas.
Yeah. I think the first thing is you can learn a lot about your human design at first. And that's fun. I love learning things and gathering information. And so if you're someone who also enjoys doing that, like go for it. It's fun to just gather all of that information at first. However, just having that information won't have a big impact on your life. Just being aware of it is not enough for most people because most of us aren't making decisions based on awareness. Some people are. Like if you are a splenic authority person, awareness is kind of your thing. Like when you become aware of something, that's when you can move. But for most of us, that is not true. It has to really unfold through a lot of different things that are happening outside of us. So taking that information and beginning to experiment with little bits of it, mostly your strategy and authority, uh, is so key. And it does not happen overnight. In human design, they say that the deconditioning process takes 7 years. That is based on how long it takes for all the cells in your body to regenerate. And I think even at first, I thought, like, well, gosh, that's a really long time. Like, maybe this can happen faster. And some ways, I mean, you can see massive changes in your life, but I'm almost 5 years into this like very focused deconditioning process because when I found human design was pretty much exactly when I left my job and started my business. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's whole aspects of my life I haven't even really been able to get to yet. Like that's going to take a little while longer. But to go back to your question of like sort of the before and after, before really I was just letting the outside world kind of dictate where I put my energy. It's like you show up at work, they tell you this is what you're doing today, this is what you have to accomplish this month, and that's just sort of what you do. And now it's like much more of a moment to moment being really in touch with my body process. It doesn't mean that I can't have plans, doesn't mean I can't like finish things, but I just feel like before, this is like a common generator and manifesting generator issue. It's like you go to work, you come home, you're not really satisfied with what you did. So then it's like you watch TV, you like binge eat something, you spend too much money, you stay up too late because it's like you're trying to get that little bit of satisfaction out of life. Um, and that's definitely how I was. That was like totally how I was a lot of the time. Um, and now it's just I'm so energized and excited to wake up in the morning. Like not every morning. I'm actually not even a morning person, but like I'm happy to wake up. Like, oh, another day. Like I'm so excited to like get this going. I have my little routines that I go through. And
oh, we want to
overall I
hear
just
about the routines. Tell us.
oh gosh. Okay. So
Yes, what do you do?
I'm not really so like in my chart, I'm actually not like a routine oriented person. If you look at your chart, there's like 4 arrows on it, top left one. If it faces left, you're more of a routine based person. If it faces right, you're not. So mine like don't stay consistent, I would say.
Mhm.
But what does stay pretty consistent for me is like I wake up, take care of my dog, feed him, get my green tea, read for a while, maybe like 30 minutes or something, wake up because I am definitely a night owl. And then lately it's been really focusing on like subconscious reprogramming. Like that is so important. That's kind of like that moment that I'm talking about where like I check in with my body, like what do I want to believe about my reality? Like, what am I trying to make tangible and real for myself? And how can I just start thinking in that way? How can I imagine that being possible? And that's it doesn't take long. Like, I spend maybe 5-10 minutes on that, jot down a few things. I'm actually in the middle of designing a journal for manifesting generators and generators to do this every day. So I've been like testing out different versions of that. So
I
I do
want
that every
that
morning.
journal.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. I just ordered like another round of it because I've been testing it. So that's kind of what I do every morning. It's nothing like really in depth. But just like get my mind in the right place for the day and just get out of my mind in a lot of ways. Yeah.
So you said you read for a certain amount of like half an hour?
Just until I feel done. Yeah.
What are you reading right now?
I borrow a lot of fiction books from the library. I started doing this like a year ago. I really wasn't reading a lot of fiction before then. But yeah, I read a lot of like Japanese fiction. It's
Oh,
very sort of like ambient and slow and gentle and yeah, just really nice. But I'm reading different things right now. I just read book called The Idiot by, I actually don't know how to pronounce her name perfectly, but Elif Batuman, and that's an amazing book. So anyone who's interested in that, check it out. But yeah, just whatever like my sacral kind of guides me to. I look at what they've got at the library, I check it out on my Kindle, and that's what I do every morning. Yeah.
very cool.
I love that.
So Amber's writing a book. She's about to deliver her book.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
What would you, for anyone writing a book, or maybe you can tell us based on our design, what would you suggest? What would be some good input?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is something that everybody can do. It just depends on like figuring out how you are designed to do it, like what feels good for you. Um, I mean, a lot of people are kind of curious like how you even like start that process or initiate that process or decide how you want to do it because today you can like do this fully on your own. You can fully self-publish something. Like all of those tools are available. And so you have a choice, sort of like what route you want to go down. But I would just say like kind of feel into like what would be your dream scenario for it. That was definitely how I did it. I had a feeling like, oh, I would like to do a book, but I don't feel that I want to go out and try to pursue that. I'm a generator. Things are meant to kind of come to me. I don't want this to feel like something that I'm pushing. I almost want someone to come to me with that concept and I can kind of respond into whether it's something that feels right. And that's exactly what happened. It was like literally one day, just got an email from the person who ended up being my editor. She was like, I heard you on a podcast. You have a blog. Obviously, you can string a few sentences together. Like, would you like to write a book? And I didn't know if that would be the exact project or the right fit or whatever, but I was like, oh, good. Okay. Like it took years. I mean, I had been thinking about this for probably 5 years. But it's just nice when it can happen in that way that feels really right for you. Yeah, so like for a projector, you'd want to feel that like there's that audience, that recognition of that thing that you want to offer, that whoever you're working with on it really sees you. And yeah, like each type would kind of have their own way of going about it. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of new to like writing long things like this. I don't really know, like, I guess I just only have this experience, and it definitely was a lot of trial and error for me in terms of figuring out like, how do I actually sit down and get this on paper? And I'm not gonna lie, like I think I would do it a little differently next time, knowing what I know now. I have a third line in my profile if you're into that stuff.
So do
So
I. So do I.
there's a lot of learning that went on there, definitely. And I think I understand more about just like how my energy does that the best. But yeah, I think for me as a generator, it just kind of worked out where it was a pretty tight timeline. And I was like, I think that's good for me. I don't like to juggle a lot of things at once. I tend to like to sort of go all in on something with my energy. So I kind of just stepped away from a lot of the other stuff I was doing, just like got that all down in like 3.5 months. I mean, we had some editing after that. But just, yeah, just sort of like went for it. So yeah, it's a whole process for each person to figure out definitely how
How
that
has your
works for
life
them.
changed since the book came out?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I feel like it's just the beginning. And I feel like this is a very generator way to look at this. Like we're sort of in it for the long haul, in it for the mastery.
Mm.
I always feel that like for some people, probably the release of the book would be like the big, like this is the opportunity to kind of make the big splash. And then maybe you kind of like move on from that. For me, it felt actually the opposite. I was like, this is just something that like I'm gradually going to get out into the world. Um, but yeah, it was super fun to be able to do like an event at Powell's. That was definitely a dream that like that was kind of the one thing I wanted to do. So it was really awesome that we were able to do that. And yeah, just get an opportunity to like talk to more podcasts and more people. Like it's been really nice to have that information out there. But I think in typical generator fashion, I'm just satisfied that it's there, that it's like I actually have it open in front of me because when I'm creating things and doing things, it's like something that I can respond to, like, oh yeah, I'll talk about that. I remember this. Like, I'm just so happy it's compiled and available for people. And I'm just satisfied with like the creation of that. And the rest of it, of getting it out in the world, just kind of feels like it'll happen naturally. But that's probably not where the satisfaction is for me. Like the being seen or the like I like doing all of those things, but that wasn't the main point. I just wanted to create it and do it.
Awesome. I love it.
That's a
Love it.
beautiful goal for any creative endeavor is to just feel satisfied by the fact that you did it, because then everything else just becomes icing on the cake and you can actually have that sense of measurable satisfaction. That's so amazing to just let go of like
Yeah.
any sort of kind of expectation outside of that feels like it must be really freeing.
Definitely. And I think that that's really correct for especially generators and manifesting generators, but like projectors that I know who do books, like for them, the most exciting part is like, oh, this is like a gateway to speaking engagements, more recognition and getting my work more out there. And that's also perfect for them. You know, for manifestors, it's like, what's the impact of this work on other people? That would be very important for them. Like for reflectors, it's kind of about like probably just being able to like mingle with different people and get things out there. So yeah, it really just depends on the individual. So yeah, like none of this advice is like universal for sure. Just depends on knowing yourself.
That
I'm
feels very accurate though, what you just said. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely something for me that is one of my top priorities and intentions
Yeah.
because I've spent much of my life on stage and that feels like very exciting and fun for me. And then I know
Yeah.
I have a friend who's a manifestor in his book. I think his intention and priority is to like create the biggest impact. So that's very accurate.
Yeah.
You know your
Yeah.
stuff.
Try to apply it.
I'm curious, Rachel, like what have been maybe some more dramatic examples for you, either for yourself or for someone you've read their chart of transformation after starting to decondition and starting to use these tools? What have you
Yeah. I
noticed?
mean, I would say like I work pretty much 100% with generators and manifesting generators, although I've witnessed these transformations and other types as well. But I definitely notice, particularly there are some like generators and manifesting generators that I've known or like had done a reading for like 4 years ago. And so I've been able to watch their journey like through social media. And it's really cool to see them go from being like completely sort of closeted in their creativity or their passions or what they enjoy doing. You know, maybe kind of like me, they have sort of a satisfying job, that somewhat satisfying job that pays the bills, but like they have this idea of this creative passion. And it's really cool to watch them really doubt that and really just have a lot of like emotional churn over like whether that's possible, like just not believing at all that that's a way that they can be in the world or even make money. And then over the years, because it does usually take that long for particularly generators, we can take that long for anybody, but see them like really step into that. And it's very gradual in the case of them. And so it's really cool to see that even though it took a little while, like it, you know, they didn't feel like it was going anywhere. They're still at their job. And then it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, like now I am doing exactly what I dreamed of. And that's so cool to see. And that always makes me really happy. Um, and yeah, like other types, I see the same thing. It tends to be a little faster, I would say, for them. But yeah, like seeing, projectors who have like something really special to share with the world, and they just maybe don't have the confidence to like put themselves out there, and seeing them understand like, oh, like all these feelings that I'm having about like why I'm afraid, or like just having that validation, I would say, of like that those feelings are totally normal, like they're literally like wired into you, and it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong, and just kind of like slowly overcoming those and being able to like put yourself out there more. Like projectors in particular, I see can like really have success like really quickly once they do that, and that's so cool. So yeah.
I was reading about being a projector to my husband, who's also a projector like Amber,
Yeah.
and he just started crying when I read him about being a
Yeah.
projector because he's lived his whole life as if he's a manifesting generator. And all of a sudden, it
Mm-hmm.
was like this permission
Mm-hmm.
to just, oh, wait, I'm allowed to take a nap? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't, that's like, that's okay. I'm allowed to, be who I am and not have to always be
Yeah,
out
like
generating.
you don't have to find your value in your productivity. What? Like that's not like, yeah,
But the world tells you that's what the world
exactly.
tells you. So it's like, it's really, talk about conditioning. It's a challenging one to deconstruct when
Mm-hmm.
that's the message that you've been receiving your entire life. So that's why I think human design is such an important and powerful modality to help people have a better understanding of who they
Yeah.
are, and how to navigate the world.
Yeah. And it just takes time, and it just kind of unfolds like literally cell by cell.
I love how you keep saying it takes time. Like can take 7 years to decondition this because you could get easily impatient or frustrated when
Yeah.
you're just starting to try these tools on and be like, well, why am I still operating in the way that's not feeling correct for my energy? But you're saying like it can take 7 years.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense that like you may start out your journey knowing I want to make this type of change in my job, in my health, in my how I structure my day, in my relationships, in whatever. But just knowing that has very little to do with actually like carrying it out and living it. This is like, I mean, I always feel like each type kind of offers like a certain perspective on, or like, yeah, like a perspective that like a wisdom that everybody can gain something from. And the generator wisdom is like the process is the magic. And I think there's like, yeah, there's some universal truth in that for everybody. Everybody will have to go through this process of deconditioning. And so that's just, I guess, how I talk about it. Another type might talk about it differently, but it definitely, yeah, like I think a lot of people just think, okay, now that I know this, I know I'm supposed to be satisfied. I know I need to have recognition. I know I need to listen to my inner authority or whatever. But it's a lot harder to actually put that into practice. But it's a really beautiful journey when you start it, and you do see results. Like right away, you'll start seeing small shifts. So it's not like you go the whole 7 years seeing nothing happen, but it can be very gradual.
Yeah. I'm curious because the Embodied Woman podcast, we talk a lot about getting into our body, and that includes the sacral. And so,
Mhm.
just in terms of sensuality or sexuality, how does human design play into that? Because I haven't really read much about that aspect. Have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, I mean, human design can just be very like theory based. So there's a lot of that. It's like I I feel like we have to, it's like we kind of use our inner authority to guide us to all the other different like tools and modalities that will kind of just, I guess, give us what we need in that area. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, generators and manifesting generators kind of have this like the sacral is the sexual energy. There are some gates and channels that come out of that are more like sexual or like reproduction based than others. There are some that are kind of asexual. Like the most common channel in humanity is the 3420 from the throat to the sacral in manifesting generators. And that is kind of like an asexual channel too. So it can just be about like busy, 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 like not so much like, oh, okay, what's going on here? You know, like that sort of like
Mm-hmm.
sensuality. So people just have a variety of different things going on with that. And then the undefined sacrals, they obviously have some of their own energy coming out of like that center because you may have gates or yeah, you may have gates, you may not, but they're just kind of magnifying and sort of reflecting that energy around from the generators and manifesting generators. So that's kind of the theory
Like
side
I've
of it.
seen like there's like a mating channel. So if two people
Mm-hmm.
have this mating channel, is like that kind of explains why they're attracted to each other.
It can be like yeah, if you have that channel they call the channel of mating, it means that like those kind of deep, intense, intimate, sexual and emotional relationships are really important to you. And have some people like that in my life, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I can see that. But it's sort of like everyone has their own version of their sexuality, obviously. And our human design chart can kind of explain some of those mechanics, but mostly it's kind of speaking to like a lot of like sexiness and sexuality is also in the solar plexus, you know, the emotions in the chart. So that's interesting too. Like a lot of people who have emotional authority, which is half the population, they have this kind of like seductive quality to them that the rest of us who don't have that really respond to. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of different interesting, yeah, sexual, like the sacral is connected to like a lot of different centers. So it's like it can be like your root center, which is very similar to sort of the traditional like chakra root center of like, you know, it's on, it's off, like you're sort of earthy, grounded. Yeah, it's interesting. It's not something I'm an expert in for sure. But you can definitely learn a lot about sort of how your energy operates in that way by looking at your human design.
So this is a question we always ask because this is the Embodied Woman podcast. Number one, what is an embodied woman to you? And number two, when do you feel you're most embodied?
Yeah, I think for me, embodiment means that I've taken those ideas or learning or thoughts or beliefs and like actually am living them out through my actions. Um, and of course, that also means it's like you're connected to the earth, you're connected to nature, you're connected to your natural rhythms. Um, but yeah, like that, the idea of embodiment for me is very much living out and taking action with those feelings or thoughts that you have and merging those two things so that you're actually showing up in the world and moving in alignment with like how you're thinking.
Love that. Love it. So,
And you feel the most embodied
Oh, and I
when?
feel the most embodied when, I would say when I'm creating something, like I'm very connected to like my physical energy, where my energy wants to go, but I'm also kind of like channeling in something from some other consciousness, something that is bigger than me, something that we're all connected to, and like bringing that literally into my body and then like using my physical body to like get that out there. I would say that's when I feel the most embodied. Yeah.
Rachel, how do you like working with other people? What's your favorite way of doing it? Is it in person? Is it on Zoom? Is it in groups?
I would say something that has happened to me in my deconditioning process is I have recognized or become, I don't know, really introverted. Like I have definitely noticed that my journey, a lot of it is about working alone. It actually has not worked for me well to have long-term, really intense, consistent partnerships. I just don't think that's part of my path. Whereas I used to be in like an office environment where not only was I like in the middle of a massive team, but I was working with like hundreds of people all over the world. Like I was constantly communicating with people. So anytime I do a partnership now, I think it just has to be something where there's a lot of space between me and the other person. Like we're creating something together, but we're also very much like in our own place, in our own rhythms, in our own space. And that tends to work the best for me at this time. But yeah, that was definitely a shock to me. Like I really was used to being around a lot of people. If you're into north nodes at all, I'm an Aries north node. So like moving away from focusing so much on partnership and really like stepping into my own individuality. So that has definitely been something that surprised me, that I really do the majority of the work that I do alone. Yeah.
So if people want to work with you, do they get to?
Yeah. So that is definitely one of the things that I've had to experiment with in my business. And human design has really helped me figure that out, because I quickly realized that that kind of one-on-one work was not correct for me. And so what I found works the best is, number one, I love creating these things that exist on their own, like a book or a report or a blog, things people can interact with on their own. And then the way
Yes.
that I do love to work with people is in like a larger community. So I host a community for generators and manifesting generators, that people join for either like 3 or 6 months, and they're in there like interacting with each other, asking questions. I'm in there interacting, but I love the freedom that it gives everybody. Nobody has to be all in the same place at the same time. Everyone can kind of go at their own pace. And I think because that works for me, it attracts people that works for them as well. So it's like I'm always available. I'm in there every day, but there's just a lot of space and freedom for everybody. And yeah, it was a long road to figure that out. I tried almost everything else in the book until I figured out that was the way.
Got it. And
It's
so
like
is that, go ahead, Amber.
No, it makes me think of like Abraham Hicks. We experience contrast so that we know what we don't like, so that we know what we do like.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like that. And also, I just want to say what a beautiful experience to give yourself permission to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think so many of us live our lives like, I should do this because
Mm-hmm.
this is what everybody else does, or and so to give yourself permission to be like, you know what, I tried that and it just doesn't feel good for me. I'm experiencing resistance or contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to try through experimentation this other way. And then like, oh yeah, that feels really good. Like, and it doesn't matter. And that's what goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning of this paradigm, moving into more of a sovereign individual, experience, where it's like, we really get to hone in and discover what our values are and how we do operate the best and feels good. And we don't have to like push or force something that just doesn't work. That's beautiful. Beautiful. I love that.
Absolutely. And I think that there's always a way to make it work how it works for you. Like
Right.
you might think, someone from the outside might say like, well, you could never be successful like doing courses or sharing information if you're not willing to, get on a call with someone. Well, that's not true. There's
Oh.
plenty of people out there who can support your work. You don't need everybody to be on your page. Like that's why there's so many of us, and that's like the beauty of the age of Aquarius. So yeah, there's always a way to make it work. And frankly, like especially once you get far enough into your deconditioning process, you realize like trying to hide it or lie about it to yourself or others just doesn't work anyway. People can feel it. It'll be repelling. It just won't pan out. So better to just claim it.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rachel, for all of the work that you're doing to help people to live their more embodied, more unique, more aligned, more truthful life. Thank you for giving everyone else permission to and dive into it in a scientific way too, which is even more permission. It's like, well, there's a logic to this.
Yeah, it's nice to have a framework, because a lot of these truths that are in human design are things that people have stumbled upon. And that's why you'll hear every type of different message from self-help people on the internet. But what I love about human design is it gives us that framework to be able to kind of look at all those possibilities at once and understand what is right for us, instead of just having to, yeah, like stumble our way through it, which is what people had to do for a long time, and definitely what I was doing. So it's nice to just be able to like cut through all of that, go straight to like, oh, I understand. Like pay attention to the design of people you're following, not because you only want to follow people of your own design, but then you can filter sort of what advice they're giving you through that lens and understand, oh, that person's a projector. That's why they're saying this is important. Oh, that person's a generator. That's why they're saying this is important. So I think just having that framework is so helpful for understanding why people are the way they are and why they're saying what they're saying, and just, yeah, how the world is.
Yes. Okay. So, Rachel, what's the thing that you're most excited about that we can share with our listeners? Is it the book? Is it a new project that's coming up?
Yeah, I feel just really excited right now. Like, I feel like it's been almost 5 years of doing this stuff, and I feel like I'm just hitting my stride and having a lot of things going on that feel really good for me, and everybody else is really enjoying them. But yeah, I've got my book out there. I do have that community for generators and manifesting generators where I drop some like new content every single week, either about human design or just living as a generator and manifesting generator. Yeah, I have my blog, a lot of free stuff on my website, puregenerators.com, and on Instagram. Yeah, and I have these other like products coming out. I have these little products that I make. I have this journal coming out. I
Love
have
it.
these reports that are available there, and I'm hoping to do like a more in-depth report that you can just automatically download over the next few months. So yeah, just like it's like a whole world of
At
stuff.
Pure Generators is your Instagram, yeah?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. We've been
Awesome.
we've been loving your Instagram.
Oh, thank you.
I've been reposting because it's all so good. It's just very simple the way you even your book, your Instagram, everything's so simple. Very
Yeah,
accessible.
I try to keep it simple, and I think that's just in my design, and that's the beauty of this, is like as you live more of your design, sort of that authentic way of expressing yourself and putting it out there becomes very clear to you and others, and yeah, it's great.
Oh, well, congratulations on everything that you're doing. And thank you so much. I've so enjoyed this conversation. I feel so inspired by you, and also just, the permission to be who we are. And, it's invaluable what you're offering to the world. So thank you for being with us and sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You both have beautiful energy, and yeah, I
Mm.
just want everybody to, my incarnation cross in human design, sort of my like sort of purpose energy is a vessel of love. It's like I'm here to hopefully impart to everybody that how they are is perfect, and there's always a way to make that work. And so yeah, I hope that's what people take away from all of this.
Oh,
Love it
thank
so
you so
much.
much.
Thank you,
Yeah, thank
Rachel.
you.
You're so amazing. I'm so inspired by you, and I can't wait to keep underlining every piece of your book because it's very, very helpful and just fascinating, and it lights me up. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Well, have a
guys.
wonderful rest of your day. Good to be with you.
Bye,
Bye.
Rachel.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Well, that was amazing.
Oh,
I
she
love
was
hearing
lovely.
things from different people. It's like you always get a different angle, but it starts to
Yep.
sink in deeper.
Yeah, yeah. She had such a calming energy too, didn't she? Like, I feel like
Very.
she's just so like, yeah, like this is how it is, and it's okay, and it takes time. And, she's very, like, you can see the work that she's done to come to a place of like loving herself and being graceful and generous with herself so that she can also offer that to others.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. I love that she met her twin flame, that she's married to them. I love that. Oh, because sometimes my hopeful romantic self is like, where are the good stories? Where are the happy endings? Okay, there's the one. I like it.
Yes. Yeah, well, I think a lot of that peacefulness probably comes from her giving herself that permission over the past 5 years to live the way that's right for her and to not have to live in a way that's expected of her. And I like how she was like, I don't like doing it this way, so I'm not. I don't have to. Like, this is how I do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. The introvert thing, I'm discovering more and more, especially post-COVID, that I've become such an introvert. I'm like,
Me too.
yeah, I like to be home. I like to study. I like to do projects. I like to do things that I can feel quiet and internal. And like, if I'm going to be outward, I like to do it in very protected ways that I can like control it. Like it's like a short amount of time, or it's like on Zoom. So I know it's like this structure. And I think COVID kind of gave us that permission to get more introverted, and then some of us just like stayed that way.
Yeah, for sure. Or just discover that that's more of who we are anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, and also I think it's interesting, like for those of us like you and I who have been performers in our lives, like people automatically assume, as did I, that if you're a performer and you're out there and you're expressing, that you're more of an extrovert. But that's not the case. I thought I was an extrovert for most of my life.
Me too.
And then I've discovered in the last, several years, like, yeah, I like to be out there. I like to perform. I like to entertain. I like to be on stages. And then I want to come home and I want to be on my couch and I want it to be quiet. And, like my kids know it's
the
great.
hermit.
Like mom and dad, have two houses, and dad likes to have people over, and that's where they get to like be where there's like parties and people. And then when they come to my house, it's like, we're quiet. It's like, they get the best of both worlds. But yeah,
that's a nice balance for them.
Yeah, for sure. It's great. It makes me feel less pressure to provide a party atmosphere when that's not really what my truth is, because I know that, it's okay for them to be bored sometimes.
Yes, it is. It's so important for them to be bored sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Amber. This was so fun. I love working together with you in this way. It's really nice how we can kind of like pick up where the other person's not sure where to go next, and just improv our way through these interviews and have our different perspectives that we have and different ways of experiencing the person. And then it kind of brings together this like whole picture. It's nice. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. She was so lovely, and I feel more calm having had a conversation with her.
Me too. Yeah, she's super grounded and just like peaceful, and it was so sweet that she said she liked our energy. I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm looking forward to promoting her webs, her all of her things, because I think she can help a lot of people, and it takes time. So we get to just be patient with the process of the deconditioning.
That's right.
That's my takeaway.
Absolutely. I mean, I talk to people all the time who, whether it's like me writing the book or whatever, and it's like people get so stuck with like the final result that they don't even want to begin the process. And so, that permission of like, it's going to take time, period. Like it's not about the end result happening immediately. It's like, it really is about the process. And I look back on it, I'm like, holy shit. Like, I really started the process of writing my book when I had my spiritual awakening and started journaling in 2014, 2015, like having no idea how it was going to all come together.
Right.
But eventually, it did. And there's no timeline. I mean, we put that on ourselves.
Yes.
But there has to be like, a finish date or an end date or a whatever. It's like,
that's the conditioning.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, totally.
Just get started.
Get started.
Okay.
Thanks, Amber.
Thanks, Siri. Have a good day, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.